Later this week, Avowed will be released to the general public. Right now, it's currently available for early access, and I've heard some of the sales figures are saying, like, I believe right now it's like number 3 on Steam. And if you look at the player count, it's not super high, but it's also for early access respectable for a game of this type of budget, which is suggesting that this might actually go on to do pretty well, which is kind of crazy when you think about it because it was only just a couple months ago that there was a lot of heat surrounding this game and the production for it, which I will get to more in a moment because that's kind of it leading in line with the subject of today's story. Because now apparently it's come out since the early access that they've actually kind of backpedaled on some of their more DEI based messaging and other stuff like that to it. This article from That Park Place is talking about it right here. Avowed backtracks on pronoun display on Obsidian art director Matt Hansen's maintained social media silence after outburst at Elon Musk. And this is talking about in relation to Elon Musk making a comment a couple months ago, pointing out that there's pronouns in this game, and he didn't like that. To which Matt Hansen, the director of this game, basically tried to gloat about that and saying, like, that's the point, we're trying to upset the chuds and stuff like that. And then following that, there was some leaked internal messaging coming out from the company where people are basically celebrating this, saying that they're trying to own the cons and their whole goal for this game is to try to push a political message. And right now in the lead up to the game, it's been more or less silent since all that took place. And now that the game is actually out for early access, people are noticing, like, hey, a lot of this stuff that they said was going to be in the game is kind of toned down a little bit. So maybe they saw that that really wasn't a smart move on their part. So they tried to backpedal because they understood if they included that stuff in the game, then it might have ultimately hurt their sales figures. Avowed, the highly anticipated first-person fantasy RPG from Obsidian Entertainment, is currently out in early access, and players have already discovered a major concession concerning pronoun features. Despite months of controversy and bold rhetoric from art director Matt Hansen, it's now possible to disable pronoun display in the game settings. This discovery was first reported on X by former World of Warcraft team lead Mark Kearns, aka Grums, and this is what he said in his tweet about it. We win again. Avowed forced to add option to disable pronouns in game. Whatever Matt Hansen was threatening with the default and putting wokeness in the game has been soundly rebuked. He hasn't posted to social media in 2 months. And it's kind of like what I was saying. It's almost like they had that outburst for Elon Musk, just kind of like children throwing a tantrum. They said stuff that later they come to find out, they're like, oh, that probably wasn't the smart move, especially since a lot of people got wind of what they were saying with those leaked internal messaging. And they're like, okay, we need to kind of do something quick because as it stands right now, it's not looking too good for us if we release the game in its current state with all this heat surrounding us and with all the stuff we've said about the public. It's probably going to hurt our sales figures. So we need to do something in order to try to win people back over. And maybe by doing that, that means, kind of backsliding on some of the agenda that they wanted to push in the game initially. So it shows his tweet right here. Kern, a longtime critic of DEI initiatives in gaming, didn't stop there. He doubled down, pointing out that while the option to remove pronouns is a victory for players, the larger issue of Hansen's leadership and behavior remains unresolved. It says the full tweet right here. Even if they added an option to remove pronouns, I can't support a studio that does nothing when their art director espouses racist and illegal hiring practices and frosts at the mouth to basically own Elon. Kern stated, this attitude needs to be eliminated from AAA. Vote with your wallets. And the racist hiring practices is basically Matt Hansen also saying that they don't want to hire white people for their jobs because of reasons. He thinks white people should not be involved with AAA gaming. I did a video around the time that this happened, going into more detail about it. So you can check out that video yourself if you want to get the full picture. But that's just kind of the bird's eye view of what was going on there. So a lot of people are critical of that because not only are those racist hiring practices, but they're also illegal to do that sort of thing. And he says he wants to do it just because it's pushing the message that he likes. And even if they did kind of retract those a little bit, Grums is basically saying, like, even if they did backpedal on these sort of things, it's not good to support a game that still hires this type of person. And that's why he's saying people should vote with their wallets and not play this game as long as he's actually there. Because if this game fails as a result of some of the stuff that he said, well, then that's going to send a message throughout the industry that if you employ people like this who say these sort of things, then your game's going to fail. But I think there's also a win-win to be had here for people who don't like these DEI initiatives in games. Because even if Grums is right, where if the game fails as a result of him still being there, that sends that message. But if it succeeds as a result of them backpedaling on these messaging in there, that's also a win. Maybe not necessarily a total victory, but it's still a victory nonetheless. But let's continue. Hansen previously made waves with his aggressive social media campaign against Elon Musk, mocking the billionaire's criticism of pronouns in video games. He boasted that his game would push players' buttons and hinted at provocative default settings. So I kind of already went into that. So Hansen silent but still employed. While Hansen may be off social media, he remains firmly in place at Obsidian, where his controversial hiring practices are still reportedly ongoing. Controversial and, like I said, illegal. His past comments in which he prioritizes hiring based on race and expressed open hostility towards white applicants were wildly condemned and flagged as potentially illegal under U.S. labor laws. We got too many crusty white dudes in this field, Hansen said previously. Please let me help you replace me one day. So basically the self-hating white guy saying, I'm an ally. I want to help replace all the white people with non-white people. And then when that's all said and done, then I will step aside and you can replace me with a non-white person. These admissions have sparked calls for legal action, with Obsidian co-founder Chris Avalon urging rejected applicants to pursue discrimination lawsuits. Even Elon Musk brought Hansen's statements to the attention of Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. I'm butchering the name, highlighting the severity of the issue. The community responds. The game community has been vocal, with many echoing current sentiment that Hansen's behavior is emblematic of a deeper problem within AAA studios. Some players have decided to boycott Avowed, stating that simply adding a toggle for pronouns isn't enough to undo Hansen's harmful rhetoric and discriminatory practices. Others argued that the presence of a toggle is proof that the studios are starting to listen to their player base. They view it as a win for consumer choice, even if it comes on the heels of a controversy. And for me, that's kind of where I stand, but I can understand both perspectives on this one. Like I said, I think either way here, it can almost be considered a win for players who don't like this sort of thing, because it shows that the studios understand that this type of rhetoric is not helpful for them, and a lot of players are rejecting it. And maybe some people are happy with this compromise. Other people, and I'd say this is more of like where I stand though, where I believe that studios still very much want to push this stuff. It's kind of like the Motte-and-bailey argument. And for people who don't know, the Motte-and-bailey argument is basically you have, I think it's the Bailey is the weaker position and the Motte is the stronger one. It's a form of argument where you have your stronger position that you can hold, but then you try to push it a little bit into the Bailey, the more extreme position. And then when that gets pushed back, you can always just retreat and just kind of regroup and then come back at it again later on. I think this is kind of what we're seeing right now when it comes to AAA games, where they're trying to push like pronouns and transgender scars and character creation and other things like that. And like we saw with Dragon Age, and that gets overwhelmingly rejected. So this is them retreating back to like, okay, we're not pushing it, but it's an option now sort of thing. And then some people will be like, okay, I guess I'll be fine with that. So they buy the game, it makes money. Then the next game that comes out from the studio is going to push it a little bit more extreme. If that fails, they're going to try to retreat again. So my position is kind of, okay, don't let them retreat again. If this is what they're going to do, where they're going to try to retreat back and say like, okay, we're not making it the default, it's just going to be an optional thing that you can have for some players out there, I would still say no, as long as it's present in the game, because we know from your own rhetoric that you're trying to push this agenda. I think people should reject the game outright, but right now it's looking like the game might actually do too well. We don't know until the game fully launches, because we have the early access numbers right now. And like I previously said, it looks like it could be pretty good for it, but still it's not perfect. But if this is just a small victory, I still say that's a good sign in the grand scheme of things. I just think people should put on the more pressure in continuing along these lines where they're saying like, we don't want to support this game as long as someone who outright hates us is currently working on it. And I can kind of understand that mentality. And for a lot of it, I agree with it, but I will take what victories we can get, because for the longest time within the AAA gaming industry, things have basically just been pushed so far where it's just now gotten to the point where people are willing to actually reject it and push back. So it's still the early days. Not every battle can be a complete victory, but I still think this is somewhat of a victory. But let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. Do you think people should just not play this game, or do you think people should support it to show that this is the direction that we want to go with certain things? And also, if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And don't forget to click that like button and share this video out there, because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.